Manhattan, the densest borough of New York City and the center of its modern birthplace. A previous home for the native occupiers roaming free in its forests and through its rivers. When the civilizations originating from the east reached the island, the time of the savages was nearing its end. The newly arrived strangers laid out the foundations of the mighty state of New York. Rem Koolhaas, one of the most important architectural thinkers and winner of the Pritzker Prize, wrote about the city in his book, Delirious New York. Koolhas started his study of Manhattan history with a quote from 1848 claiming that North American barbarism was to give place to European refinement. To him, even if this sentence disregarded the facts, it is right on point when it came to the intentions. Manhattan is a theater of progress. The leading characters of this play are the exterminating principles. Its plot is about the barbarism giving way to refinement. If we follow that logic, then it is clear that a non-ending loop was created, a spirit of conscious refinement of the previous orders. It is a play that can never end. Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's start with the architectural acts of this play. Act 1. The Fake Dreams. In 1672, a French engraver made a map for what was called New Amsterdam, which looked like a walled European city. Just like the original Amsterdam, it had linear ports, a church, a stock market, palace of justice, a prison, and a hospital. All the components of the map are European, but stolen from their context and transported to a mythical island. The map was a dream of a utopian European city. In it, all the desirable elements that existed in the old world. In reality, the map, however, was all fictitious and a scam. Act 2. New Amsterdam. In 1623, a Dutch engineer reached Manhattan along with families to plant a colony. Fredericks had instructions of how the town should be laid out. A plan to create a city similar to their motherland, Amsterdam, man-made, where no accidents are allowed. A fort, a ditch, farmers' houses, and gardens in a rectangular form. The plan did not match the real topography of the tip of Manhattan, so a smaller fort was built and the rest was scattered in a disorderly and organic manner. Act 3. The Grid. In 1807, 3 prominent members of the city were commissioned to lay out a plan to assert the occupancy of the city. They came up with a grid of 2,028 blocks, a grid that represents all the current and future activities on the island. This plan, according to Koolhas, is the biggest act of prediction in Western history. And then, the grid came to be with different intentions. 1. It is there to facilitate the buying and selling of the island's real estate. 2. To divide unoccupied lands, phantom buildings, and framed activities that did not exist. Just as the previous maps and plans, the grid is indifferent to the topography of what exists, and it claimed one more time that superiority of mental construction over reality. It made the history of architecture and all previous lessons of urbanism irrelevant. It forced builders to create strategies for the distinction between blocks. Act 4. Central Park. In 1850, Manhattan's population exploded, so the planners made sure to protect the parks from the architectural expansion. Soon afterwards, they came out with a plan to design Central Park. Like the grid, it was a huge leap of faith, a contrast between the built and unbuilt. While the island is converted into rows and rows of monotonous streets, the park will always be the only gate to its original form. They manipulated the surface, planted trees, created lakes. Central Park is a catalog for the natural elements of the island taken from their original context, another synthetic element of the city. Act 5. The Tower and the Sphere. In 1853, the city organized a fair to mark its superiority over the other states. They built two structures that easily dominated its skyline at the time. The first structure was a palace, inspired by the Crystal Palace of London, but with more constraints on its proportions since it is confined within a block of the grid. Due to that, its dome looked more like a balloon ready to escape. The second structure was the Ladding Observatory, a tower 350 feet high and perhaps the world's first skyscraper. Even though the fair presented the world with the great invention of the elevator, it unleashed on the island a new drama. The city became a technological hub, and the race between different species of machines was born in the play that will never end. Stay tuned for part 2, and thank you.